Okay, so I guess it will be the five of us today. So welcome you guys to this closure session of the Model 7 about digital resources for media education. Today we have with us Dr. Marta Portalés that you will know from the forum. She is graduated in audiovisual communication from the University of Valencia, and she has a Master of Research in Communication and Journalism from the UAV, and she also holds a doctorate in communication and journalism from the UAV also, with a thesis on media literacy and new digital environments. So thank you, Marta, for joining us today, and welcome to this session.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I'm super excited because I was reading today in the morning some of the posts that you were doing Sunday and Monday, and I saw that we have different backgrounds, all of us, and also different. We come from different countries, and in this module, at least today, we can put some things together that can be of really interesting to see the cross culture part of also the digitalization on one side and the education on the other. So my passion for media literacy and digital education came because my parents were teachers. So my mom was a kindergarten teacher and my father primary school teacher. And back in the day, I brought always the new gadgets and new tech to them, and I was always explaining them things. And even with my father, we took computers from companies that they were throwing them away. And during the summer, we put them together with pieces. So we grabbed pieces from other computers and we brought them to the school. And every year there was a computer room that nobody knew how it came and why, but we started for fun doing these things with children. And also with the smaller ones, even with the 3, 4, and 5 years olds. And that's how I started with this media literacy and digital education. And when I was studying, I realized that I could do projects and research about it. A teacher of mine told me, "Why don't you do your master thesis about this?" And I was like, "You can do that?" So it was pretty exciting because then I started to something practical to turn it into research and also more empirical. And that's how I learned a little bit also about sociology and the different types of ways of doing research with education. And my PhD at the end was a wrap up of all those years doing also the practical, but also the research part behind it. And nowadays, I have to say, I still work in the tech sector. I do European projects for the European Commission, so related to technology and digital competences, basically. So I also teach at university. I have two jobs. I teach at university and also do work for the European Commission on EU projects. So today, what are we going to talk? A little bit about the context and also some examples and good practices that I think are quite interesting, but some of you already talked about them and brought up some examples. And we will talk together or debate together in a whiteboard, in a mural. Probably you've worked it in the past and you know how it works. But the idea is to put some post-its together and put some in common because it's more interactive than the forum at the end, because the forum is asynchronous and this activity think that it's synchronized in time and almost space. we can all together and debate. And then I will show you a couple of tools that I love. Some of them you might already know, but some of them maybe not. And there are online tools that are for free and that I've used with my parents back in the day when they were teaching, and that I like my students also to use in order to create different digital contents, which is at the end what the module is about. So one of the things I like to talk is how digitalization has changed languages, right? So probably Jamal, since you were a teenager in the US, you know about this. So you lived the era of Musical.ly, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because not many people know about it. here in Europe, but Musical.ly was the predecessor of TikTok, and you were talking about this in the forum. And what I like to talk about when putting this example is that at the end, the digitalization has changed the way we communicate, even in a multimodal way. So in Musical.ly, one of the important things was also the gestures, right? So how a technology changes how the gestual movements are, right? And do have a definition in the digital environment. So it was basically songs that have had a choreography, but the hand movements had some meaning, right? And this is the concept of the multimodal, right? Communication, that it's not only the way we see, but also the way we communicate through audio, spatial, also even gestural, which is what Musical.ly was about in the beginning, and the visual design. So this is also one of the things I like to show, because at the end, media literacy is a concept that comes from different research backgrounds. So we have the educational research background, but also the media culture and content research background, the media audience research one, or the media and globalization research, and all of the technologies and languages, because at the end, literacy is a language, right? Um, do change through the usage of the technology and the platforms and the creation of digital content. So that's why when we talk of the evolution, right, of the web 1.0 towards what nowadays is more the concept of even 5.0, because the same as in the industrialization, the concept of the 4.0 is more focused on how technologies make society evolve. The concept of the 5.0 is more related to how this human-centric approach to technology is important, right? So instead of having technology drive the way as we as society grow, it's more important to reflect on how technology can serve us as persons and as humans, right? And one of the initiatives that talks about these digital resources, and Howard Gardner, he was one of the fathers of the concept of the intelligences, the multiple intelligences. He has a research group, and they stated a curriculum with 8 topics in order to talk about this digital citizen, right? How the digital citizenship needs to be evolving. And one of the things that I thought was important, and one of you highlighted it, was the concept of information literacy, but also the self-image and identity, for example. So how all of these concepts work together. And in the Good Play project, they work together with the Common Sense Media platform that is very famous in the US. Maybe, Jamal, you know about it. But I think it's a good practice, or one of these best practices that we were talking about, that, for example, would be interesting to bring to Europe. And this is, for example, the platform. What I like from the Common Sense Media Education is that they analyze applications that are new, platforms that are new, that they rise and they are used, and they do educational resources on one side for researchers, on the other for parents, and on the other for educators. So these 3 verticals is one of the sources of information that I like quite a lot, in order to reflect or use or see what the uses are of different new digital platforms. And the UNESCO, well, Maya, you were the other day here, so you know very well this project. But they are doing this global alliance on media and information literacy, which I think is quite basic. And also, they in the website, and they publish reports that are quite interesting to see on the trends. So in regards to fostering the good usage of platforms and applications and content, some countries in Europe have their own media education centers. In Spain, we don't have this specialization, but other countries do. For example, in Belgium, the Flemish side, they have this media bigs. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the cool thing, because it's in Dutch, but the cool thing is that they create a lot of content for parents. And one of the things that I liked was that they have this board game. So through a game, they play in family, and they reflect on the digital and the platform uses they do. So this is one of the things that I thought was interesting, how an analog game can raise the debate within a family without creating tension on how to use technologies, right? So it's a very smart way of raising this awareness through yeah through this type of gamification, which is also one of the concepts that you actually also highlighted, several of you in the forum. So another thing that I like that is quite famous in Spain, probably also in other countries, but the personal learning environment, or commonly used as play, or mentioned as play. At the end is how it has three levels, right? The technological level, the place level, and the people level. It can be applied to several settings in the educational sector, but on one side is how technologies, right, are modifying knowledge, the pedagogical approach. So, for example, blogs of teachers that share their insights, wikis, forums, social media, even. Then the place where these technologies are used. For example, some libraries have digital education programs, public libraries. Or actually, one of you that lives in Canada was highlighting the VR experiences in a library. That was quite interesting. And also how people, right, the three levels. If it's in the family or it's in a school, for example, in an educational setting with friends or with others. And it's a good way of analyzing, no, the digitalization and the way technology is used for learning purposes. And here, everybody has its own personal learning environment. AI, for example, was one of the concepts that you were highlighting a lot. And for me, it was a big disruption on how I manage and how I use AI, for example, in my job. In this case, when AI came, I learned how to use ChatGPT, but also on how to create GPTs and how to train the machine, right? And how to be a good user of prompts. So this is one of the things that, for me, at the end, established a personal learning environment, because technology was AI for me, place was business. So in this case, it was my job, and the people around me, co-workers, right? And how all of these tools, we made actually a common way of working with AI together in the team in order to implement it. And the Autonomous University of Barcelona is one of the pioneers in Europe in doing a guide on how to use AI in education. I will show you the website. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, if not, I will leave it in the forum later, because I was talking to the teacher recently, and I liked it because it's a guideline on how teachers at university level need to interact and explain students on the use of AI. Now the problem is that AI is a very important keyword and is used for everything, and I cannot find it now, but I will put it in the forum. I will write it down and share it with you. So this is also one of the things that we can talk about today. So now my idea is that I will leave in the chat the mural, which is the link you don't need to register. You can also access as guests. And there are several questions that I want us to put together in common. So the first one, so you will see that each of you has a color, right? So for example, in the forum, Maya already said that she uses Kahoot for English language. So I already added it here. And the same in the section of the individual teacher best practices. For example, I think it was Jamal, right? The VR and gamification, the TikTok and choreography. So I did a little bit of a summary of some of your contributions. So first, try to enter the mural. I left it in the chat, and we can start putting together some of the things. So for example, in regards to the digital content that you create, or for example, if you had to do a lesson nowadays, what tools would you use apart from Kahoot, for example? So I don't know if yeah, you are all muted. Maybe you can open up the microphones and then let me, because Maya already told us, but yeah, Maya told, like, how do you use Kahoot, and are there other tools apart from Kahoot that you are using?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the names of the ones I've used in
Ah,
the past. Kahoot is the most popular. I'm trying to remember I used this with a tutoring student, but it was a critical thinking app game.
oh,
And it was fascinating because they had to look at the stories or the different sides to a particular story, and they were the ones that made decisions on how they would solve it. There was no right or wrong answer, but it was a critical thinking app specifically to get them to start thinking about different sides, different perspectives, solutions. And I really want to find it, and I was trying to Google it very quickly because it was really, really well done, I thought. But then again, the 14-year-old who I was tutoring, some days she liked it, some days she absolutely hated it. So, but I did like it for the aspect of Mill, where they are talking about the critical thinking side of it. How do you gamify that? How do you make it interesting?
mhm.
Um, and I know I had it at one point, but
And
huh.
yeah, maybe yeah, you can write it in the post-it when it
Yeah,
comes.
I'm gonna find it and I will share it.
And Yamal, I
I haven't been really familiar with any of them really, so I
mm,
kind of found some in pertaining to dance, some that I
mm,
researched basically going on what we're working on next week. And there is a famous dance institution called Jacob's Pillow in the US, and they
mhm,
actually launched 3 years ago their Dance Interactive, which is basically kind of like a catalog of all the dance performances that have ever happened in the space there.
mm,
They offer maybe like maximum 2 minutes of a clip, which is kind of sad because
yeah.
you don't get the full experience of works, which I've talked about the pros and cons of that. But one of the things they do is they have like this quiz, this game where they show an image and you have to guess who the choreographer is or what the
Oh,
company is. However, it's just a random picture that you have to guess from four people. So uh there's no prompt to it. Like it wasn't like I read a passage or I read like something and then I got to see this quiz part. It was just picking from a random tree which choreographer is this, which is a bit, for me, it got a bit discouraging after 3 times in a row getting it wrong. As a dance professional, like I should know these answers and I didn't know any of them. So yeah, that's one that I know off the top of my head. Yeah.
and I don't know, Malak, if you can talk. Lorena can't because she's still at work, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm also not very familiar with the tools, but I remember I took some courses. We used Slack. It was good. Like it
Yeah.
was a platform for communication with the teachers and to communicate to students. So yeah, I remember this tools like like Google Classroom also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when you were talking, also Maya, instead of Kahoot, there's another one that I like that it's called Mentimeter or Menti.
Oh, Mentimeter.
Yeah, you know it, right?
I do.
Sí,
I do.
sí.
The kids get very competitive with that.
So for the other ones, this one it's a free but also premium. For free, you can do 3 questions, and it helps when you have a big audience or the students are not very engaged, and you can even do it fun, and it's a way of asking a big audience about something, and they need to answer back scanning a QR code and interacting. So for example, one of the ones I like to do a lot is, how are you feeling today? So you can ask for the mood of the classroom, if it's fit, because at the end I teach at university level. So sometimes we have classes with 60 or 80 people, which is sometimes this personalization that we were talking about in the forum, how technology can help. Sometimes it's impossible unless you do it with digitalization, right? So you can use a template. They have like some templates here. You can even integrate GIFs when asking for questions. This is a fun icebreaker. For example, I've used it in the past. Like let's see, what option would you pick, right? So which one would you choose if you could select one, unlimited money or unlimited time? The good thing is that this is a template that you can modify the colors, the answers, the GIFs, right? And it sets the mood and makes it more fun. So if the students already know that there's a theory class that it's going to be very heavy, you can have some breaks with these icebreakers, for example, and it works well. It doesn't test them because it's not like a Kahoot where you are doing a survey and testing them, but it makes it fun. So this was one that I added in the mural. Then when listening to you, Yamal, you already probably know Khan Academy. It was more related to mathematics in the beginning, like how to explain concepts that were hard to understand. So this is one pretty interesting platform. And there's a TED talk about how it was born, this initiative, and it's also quite interesting. And the guy that behind Khan Academy is a well-known speaker and has a couple of TED talks, and he's called Sal Khan, and Salman actually, but it's the acronym is Salkan. And I really loved this one that it's pretty old now, but the usage of video to reinvent education is a pretty cool one. And I didn't know he had recently done another one on how AI could save, not destroy education. So this one probably could be interesting for everyone to watch. I will also add it here to the mural. And here you also added Quizlet, Bamboozle, and Instagram. This is interesting. This was one of the questions I had prepared. So maybe Maya, you can tell us what you think.
Yeah. So one thing that I always try to encourage students to want to learn is I want them to pick topics that interest them. And most of the time it is from Instagram or maybe TikTok. Where I had a student that wasn't very good about she was preparing for her IELTS, and there's a portion where you have to have what's happening in the picture, right? So what I did was I said, okay, tell you what, I want you to find me an Instagram video, watch it, and then I want you to tell me what happened in that video. You can
Okay.
pick whatever it is. It can be a dance, a makeup thing, I don't care. But you have to tell me what it is. Then once she was comfortable being able to explain it verbally, then I had her start writing like essay aspects of it. I said, okay, now we're going to make a mind map based on this video. Now you're going to write an essay telling me what happened, or maybe an opinion, or whatever prompt I decided to do. But at least that way, it was able to give her the access of what do you want to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I just pick something for you, odds are you're going to be bored out of your mind because you don't have the same enthusiasm I do for maybe history or something equally boring, in her words. So it just made it a lot easier and more interactive for the student to be able to use something that they see every day and that they find interesting.
Very cool. Yeah. In regards to Instagram, I have to say that I also met a teacher. It was also an English teacher, actually. That so this was at the beginning almost of the usage of Instagram in Spain, so maybe 2017 or 16, 17, in which the English teacher told me, since my students spend more than 2 hours per day on Instagram, what I'm going to do, or what I did, was to create my own teacher Instagram account. So they were following me on Instagram, and I was throwing at them micro-learning pills about English words, songs, and so on. And I was like, smart. It's like you will know it's not only entertainment, but also micro-learning, because one of the things that it's been debated now is that the attention span of younger ages, due to this constant stimulation of the visual and the cognitive, that we cannot concentrate as much as we did in the past. So the micro learning pills are getting popular between teachers and when they are creating them. And the other ones that you added here is Quizlet is quite similar to Kahoot, right? And Bamboozle, that one I don't know.
Bamboozle is in some ways quite similar to Kahoot, where you are creating content to then be put into whether they're games or interactive things, but it's similar, maybe not exact. And I did find the other.
Oh,
I
cool.
did find the other, but that's the video, not the actual thing. I was clicking on the shared screen, not the actual one I wanted. But it's called Quandary. Is what it's called. It's maybe I know that it has I think Spanish support and it's in English. But it was a really, really interesting game. I think it was the let me see, I'll get the web link here. There we go.
Ooh,
Here.
ethical decision making.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's really interesting. It was developed by, oh God, I'm gonna get the history of this wrong, but yeah, it was developed by, I believe, researchers, other teachers, and things like that, trying to create this. So, not to say that app developers don't have expertise, but it does help to have those additional perspectives for what it was trying to do, in my opinion. So, yeah, it was actually kind of fun. I wanted to maybe mess around with it with my friends and see what we ended up doing with it.
Super cool. And then I don't know, Yamal, if there's any other one that you would like to highlight. You're muted.
There you go. The other one I can think of, well, we had one in our readings, like Duolingo, for example,
Yes. Sí,
or
sí.
Jump Speak. I'm trying to think all the things I'm using now. And when I think about, I actually stopped using Duolingo because I felt Jump Speak to be a bit more, because they use AI, I think even more. I think Duolingo tried to, like, in its newer updates, try to incorporate AI a bit more. But like I think with Jump Speak, you have kind of like this, you're able to have a conversation which is a nice way of learning rather than kind of like grammar, like, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that was very interesting.
Very cool. In regards to that, I'm going to show you a couple of other tools, right, that I think are useful. So, for example, one of the things that I taught my mom when she was younger to create her own website. It actually was pretty cool because all the knowledge she had from creating didactical units, she put everything on the website. And we use this platform called Jimdo, which is super easy. And nowadays, now that she's retired, she actually keeps it alive and she still does research, which is pretty good because at some point she hasn't stopped working. And it's nice to have the mind also still working. So this is the website. It's a very pretty normal kind of blog style website. Probably you remember those 1995 blogs, right? And one of the units that I created with her was related to the concept of the audiovisual language and how to do it with children, right? And we even recorded films with the children on the concept of one self and the others, right? Through kind of video art even. And there were film festivals for children across Europe that we also got some mentions and participated with them. And it was pretty cool. And one of the units that I liked a lot was the concept of like playing with the images when they were super small. And in this case, this class or the when we were doing this, the parents were super enrolled. It was a moment where in Spain there was a lot of not so many jobs, so a lot of parents were unemployed, but the parents were highly qualified, and the parents created a community with my mom as a teacher, and they did a lot of things together. Like one of them was a photographer, so he got involved. Another one was an artist, and we did all kinds of activities with them, and also involving the parents. One of them, what's wrong with this one? No, I don't know why, but it got disconnected. Yeah. So for example, you know the concept of the gestalt, that some images do have different meanings, or that some points are bigger than the other ones, like optic illusions, right? So for example, here we were empirically trying out if the optical illusion was real or not, right? So we did these kinds of things. So with the platform of Jimdo, it's an easy way of creating a website, and this is something you can do the same as WordPress or something similar, but so that you know that you can create your own website and start reflecting and working on the things that you need to do in your professional settings. Another tool that you probably have used is Canva, right? It's used a lot in order to do graphic design or even micropills contents for educational settings. And it also has this Canva AI now tool in which you can automatically create some contents, but also automatically generate images. There's the same way as ChatGPT in the not so premium version also lets to. Another one that you maybe don't know is Genially. Does any of you know it? No? Okay. So for example, you have your own website. Doesn't matter if it's with Jimdo, the platform that I left you there, or WordPress. But one of the things you can do with Genially is gamification. So you can create games that can be as infotainment, and you can also create interactive images with concepts. So there was actually an inspiration. You can see, for example, the type of content you can do. This is a quiz, sustainability and the environment, for example. And then which of these methods uses the least of water? Dishwasher, hand washing, both use the same amount of water. Incorrect. So the dishwasher and hand washing use the same way, the same amount of water. So you can actually, from a template, create this type of gamified content, right? It's pretty cool. It gets used for many settings, even for risk, also management. And in the templates, there was you can see the games and challenges template. So there's all kinds of ones. Like there's even one that looks like a Monopoly, which was one of my favorite ones. There are ones that are pro. For example, this crime in the building is premium, but most of them are actually free templates to be used. Then the other one that I liked is the images. So you can do also microsites and the interactive images, infographics also. For example, this one, no, the concept of the Women's Day, Virginia Woolf. So the Genially lets you have an image as a background. This is the edit setting, and you can create interactive buttons that you put on top. So it also ranges from GIFs, and that when you scroll on top of the image, pop-ups come out. And it's a pretty cool thing that you can use. And when sharing it, you can share it as a URL, right, as a hyperlink, or you can even insert it within a website, which is what we sometimes do. And it works pretty well. And it's also a digital resource that can be used for education. Another tool that I wanted to show you that probably you know is CapCut. Have you used it? Yes. So the CapCut, you can use it for the on the phone. It doesn't matter if it's Android or iOS, but also edit on the desktop. You can also work with it in the desktop, and it's basically a video editing tool that was born with TikTok and so on, but it also lets you create other type of contents, right? You can create also automatic generated voices through AI. So for example, if you have to put a voiceover for an educational video, you can directly use an AI tool. For example, it also does automatic subtitles, but it's in the pro version. But if you have to use this for video, there's another one. It's called VN Editor, that it's also for iOS and Android free, and this one has the automatic subtitles for free within their system. VN is actually free everything. It doesn't have pro templates or anything. It's more of these open source softwares that have been created. CapCut has this more trendy commercial look behind it. It's raining like crazy now in Barcelona. We're literally, I don't know, where are you? Jamal, you're in Barcelona, right? Also?
Yeah, I'm in Barcelona.
Yes,
That's why I
yes,
keep
yes,
looking.
yes.
I'm like, wow, why is it raining so much?
Sí, sí. It's like it got dark by the
Yeah, all of
moment.
a
It's
sudden it
like,
just
we don't
started
need
raining
another
like
blackout,
crazy.
please.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sí, sí. Crazy times. So CapCut is also one of these tools that I wanted to show you. And in this sense, there are two educational animated, or in order to create these digital resources that are used a lot by educators, which is Powerful. Do you know? No? It got popular with these hand-drawn images that explain concepts, and now it's more like small avatars that you can edit, and you can actually do small animations with it that look pretty good and are like easy to do. So an animated explainer, for example. And you can use it for free. And usually it exports with a watermark, but some teachers use it in order to create content. Or what we've done in the past is to pay 1 month and export all the videos that we had and then not pay the next month, which is also pretty fair. And another one that I like a lot is Animaker also. So it's also a tool in order to create small animated videos, explainers basically. These type of videos are called explainers, through not even installing an app in the computer, but on the browser. And for example, this one, I believe it was how the brain works. And it's like different types of concepts that you can bring avatars, and these avatars can mimic or explain certain concepts. And at the end, the usage of video stimulates also a lot the learning environment. So there's even the concept of the YouTube teacher. So I remember my father once told me, and this actually sentence, like I will never forget it. He was like, I explained them all the mathematical concepts and they don't listen to me. I put a video in YouTube that explains the same stuff and they get it. I don't understand, Marta. So it's pretty crazy how the video or the sometimes this digital language that we were speaking at the beginning changes also the way we learn. And at the end, they like more the video because it had animated content, you know. Yeah. And let me check if I had other. Yeah, this was, so for example, this is like some examples of Animaker. Wow. And Powtoon, which is also the other one that I was telling you about. And actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, so to wrap up a little bit, was, can social media be used in education? And as Maya was telling me, right, this was one of the questions that I had for you. And I think it's pretty cool. And I think the other questions that I wanted to put in common, apart from this one of the social media, is I put the summary of the things, right, that you were talking today. I don't know if there are any AI tools or, you know, for education specifically. At the end of the day, from my experience is that the tools that I used in the past, they've added the AI layer, but I haven't found anything new in this sense. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Oh, sorry. This is my thesis.
Okay.
But was specifically mill for AI. But yeah, I think as far as what exists currently for education about AI and on the same level of just mill in general, I haven't seen a bunch of very popularized ones. However, apparently there are some I also didn't know about that are, I think they're targeted more towards professionals at this point. I haven't seen a ton that were targeted at younger people yet. There's a few that there's a program, or not a program, but a group called Namle in the US, and they have been working on putting together curriculum and things like that. And they do seem to be trying to push that younger perspective in some of their work. And then also Carolyn Wilson and the McLuhan Foundation. Yes. She was talking about the fact that they have had mill in their curriculum for ages now, and now that they are starting to look into the AI side of things, I was actually going to reach out to her about this. So, but those were two groups I think that are starting to work towards this curriculum integration to education aspect of it. But I've been meaning to do a deeper dive on this and develop my own as well. So I'm curious what everybody else knows or has seen.
It's cool to see at the end. It will be cool to read your thesis because it's quite relevant for nowadays, right? And then at the end of the day is what I was explaining, you know, the new trend or the new reflective way, which we can see through the geopolitics also, right? How the digital environment is polarized basically, and how even if we are creating educational content, how is this data used by big platforms? So last summer, I remember when creating some educational content, some slides, I was asking AI for an image of a girl that is a social science researcher without glasses. And even telling the AI without glasses, all the images that she generated, the AI generated, was with glasses. So the biases, right? And how media literacy here is important because you need to tell or teach the students on one side, hey, digitalization is here, you have AI, and you need to use it ethically. So first of all, what is the ethical use of AI on one side? And then the second, but is AI ethical, right? So this, when talking about digital platforms at the end, this is also one of the things that comes up quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a really good point, especially where we talk about the sources of where, you know, these, especially the GPTs come from, you know, learning that they're mainly from the northern part of the world, like the southern part of the world are not, I don't want to say they're not, 'cause I don't know too much in research, but in theory, you know, the US, the China, the Europeans are the ones who are basically in charge of dictating what the rest of the world sees. So like when you go through these chat GPTs, you're getting a perspective based on how they see it, not necessarily how a person from South Sudan sees or somewhere else. So you're getting this very skewed idea already. So from the jump part, like what is the ethics of, you know, AI? It's tricky because it's, again, in some ways man-made, and it's man-made from a very specific point of view that is then being trickled down for everyone to consume. So it's good that we have it, but then how do you know, democratize it? How do you ensure that there's inclusion in all of these, which is such a word that's being kind of it's like inclusion, but no, we don't want inclusion. We want inclusion, but we don't.
Yes, get your thesaurus out.
It's really tricky right now because we're in this space where we're trying with AI and with just technology, we want to burst through its seams, but then at the same time, it feels that because my own opinion, because I feel a lot of big tech companies or even politicians don't feel that they can grab onto it. They're trying to find ways to keep it and slow it down and in their own ways of doing that. So, yeah.
You kind of touched on something, another aspect of this was the cost of this, right? And it's not, I mean, yes, of course the environmental cost and things like that, but you know, so many of these generative AIs are owned by big companies because more often than not, the governments can't afford the data centers that are required to run these things. So a lot of governments are trying to find ways to put some kind of guardrails or something that isn't just, is it profitable? How is this profitable to the company? Because again, this is talking to a couple other wonderful experts, but you know, I was told, and I was very glad to have my bias pointed out, was I guess Brazilian Portuguese. If you try to change the language in a chat GPT so that you can communicate what you want or what you're trying to do in a language that isn't supported, you're either still going to get answers in English, even though it maybe understood your question in whatever language, or it doesn't support the language at all. And in which case, and it's usually the places that can't afford to have a voice, you know, in whatever capacity that is. So, you know, by having the governments trying to hopefully, you know, put some kind of ethical, I don't know, guardrails in place, you know, but the companies are in control more often than not, at least right now. So, you know, the part that's so difficult about this, and it kind of opened my eyes when I was thinking about, well, shoot, trying to make curriculum, you know, for everyone. I don't know if we can do that right now with what's available or what's happening in the space. Not that I want to be pessimistic and say never, but it definitely has skewed the way that I'm starting to think about, you know, developing curriculum across the board, because I want it to be as, you know, usable by as many people as possible. But when you have these kinds of biases, whoa, that changes a little bit of what's available to teach this stuff. So I really appreciated that perspective of, you know, the bias, and then how do we insert the ethics into this.
I think for me,
Exactly.
one of the main things with talking about the ethics was just acknowledgement of it. I think one of the things that like the ChatGPT does that I really appreciate is just saying that we don't always get it right. Like, you know, our information might be wrong. And I hold that to like a very high standard for them. Like, you're in my brain, like your ChatGPT is something that should know the answers, you know? So I think it's really great that it's like, oh, you don't know the answers. So now let me go and fact check. Like, for example, I would put into ChatGPT, like, tell me about Jamal Calendar, and it will list all the things about me, and then there was some things that are just completely off. And it's like me then educating the ChatGPT, no, that didn't happen with me. That's not my, you know, career, whatever, like that. So I find that very interesting. And, you know, even my husband and I were talking, we were just like, even with AI, like, there's still so much room to grow and so much
Yes.
work to do in it that it might happen very quickly, but there's still possibility to educate and teach this ChatGPT how to be more democratic or worldly. So yeah.
No, I
And
love
more
the
in
point.
the arts also, because the artistic part, right, of AI, and it's getting regulated here in Europe. Sometimes before you could ask ChatGPT, please write me a script as if you were Woody Allen, and now it's like, due to copyright reasons, I cannot provide you with this type of content, right? So it's getting, the legislation always comes later than the technologies sometimes, which is not great, but it's getting there. And another thing that I always tell my students is, can I use AI? Yes, but if the input you are giving it is done by you, so you can ask ChatGPT, do a summary of this paper that I wrote, do some social media copies of this paper that I created last year. I don't know. But because if not, at the end of the day, it becomes the echo chambers, and all the content, right? It's like an echo of the words.
And I wanted to just put one more thing out there that kind of shocked me a little bit, was because I was looking at it from a research perspective of find me sources that have this topic, these sources only, you know, authentic, like real sort, like these kinds of things. And there was, ironically, Instagram, a researcher that was saying, be careful even with this, because they said I was using it to find quotes to support this aspect of my research. And while she literally showed the whole process where it gave her a source and gave her the quote, and the quote was perfect. It was perfect for what she was looking for. She clicked on the link to go to the source, and it was real. It was a real source, but that quote existed nowhere in the paper. And it kind of rocked my world a little bit. I mean, I've been using AI in the sense of like, give me the source. Okay, great, that talks about this topic. I'm going to go in and now read, the things and take what I want. But I mean, even from a research perspective, that aspect of it as well. Like, I was all gung ho about, yeah, absolutely, go use AI to do your research, pull what you need. However, here's now another layer of be careful.
Yeah.
I still am enthusiastic about go find it and use AI to help you find it.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to be a huge advocate for like, yeah, but don't just take the word at the word. But that definitely shook me up a little bit.
Totally. Sí. So I think I don't know if you want to contribute with other things, but if not, I would say it was really nice meeting you in person, almost in person. I'm glad we're still not AI avatars, that we are still good
Yeah.
people.
Not yet.
Not yet. I don't know, Malak, you open up your microphone. I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. Last time when they told us also about DeepSeek, it's like Chat GPT. It's Chinese AI. So yeah, I started to compare the answers, especially political answers between DeepSeek and ChatGPT. It was different perspective of the history, even the answers. Some of the things are, yeah. So yeah, that's all what I want to say about using the very intelligent AI.
See, at the end, it's like who's behind the geopolitical factors that we were talking just now, and one of the things I know that the European Commission wants to work on, which is sometimes in some of the events I've been to recently, is like this EU approach, right, to that the servers are in Europe, the data common spaces, it's called, they have some politics, the AI Act in order to regulate, but also they wanted to generate software in order to create their own AI, European AI systems. But let's see what happens in the upcoming years. And we will see how it changes education. So thank you all for your contributions. I don't know, Albert, if you want to.
No, I didn't want to add anything, just to thank you, all of you, as always, for your participation. And I don't know, we are like two more models left. So this is kind of the end. Not yet, but kind of. I don't know if you're. I, I didn't ask you before, but are you okay with your final project? Are you going okay with that?
Stressed, probably, no?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, for me, I kind of hit like a plateau for a moment of, I think
yeah.
Easter break kind of make left me like in a weird place, and I'm trying to like get back onto it. And actually, like I'll tell you really quickly, I did a survey, and then I wanted to do a forum with a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
people who were interested in doing it, and no one responded to my email.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I contacted people separately, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry I missed that," but like I feel like time's going, so like I'm kind of trying to reorganize what I want to do. So I'm gonna do interviews instead with experts in different
Yeah,
fields
that would be
instead.
better, yes.
Yeah,
Because
just so that,
sometimes by email you have to be really, really, really pushy because if
yeah,
not,
and like
people
doing
like
a
don't
doodle,
do
trying to
it.
get people together. I was just like, I'm just gonna,
Yeah,
but yeah.
Well,
well,
I
that's
wish
okay.
you a lot of courage for this
Thank you.
last
Sure,
one.
sure. So, no, nothing else from me today. So, thank you again, guys, for joining us today. Thank you, Marta. And we see you next week. Yeah. If you need
Bye. Thank
anything,
you.
you can always write. You know that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye,
Thank you
guys.
so
Enjoy
much.
the rest
Thank
of
you,
your
everyone.
afternoon.
Bye
Bye.
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.